Welcome to the deep dive. This is where we give you that shortcut to being really well informed, kind of cutting through the noise. We take the sources you give us, articles, research, maybe even your notes, and we pull out the key insights, the surprising bits. Today, we're diving into a really fast-moving global picture. The sources you shared cover a lot. Rising tensions in the Middle East, big shifts in alliances, serious environmental worries, and also a critical point for global institutions. It sounds like a lot, I know, but we'll try to make it clear, sort of compelling for you.
Yeah, and what's really important to get, I think, is that these aren't just separate things happening. These crises, the geopolitics, the climate stuff, they're connected. They actually feed off each other. Like instability in, say, the Middle East. That makes global governance harder. It even impacts how we prepare for climate change. Understanding that connection, that interplay is really key in this time of real uncertainty, militarily, environmentally, institutionally, too.
That's a really strong starting point. Okay, so let's unpack that. Let's maybe start with the Middle East. The Israel-Gaza crisis has, well, really escalated according to these sources. We're seeing some really distressing reports like calls from Israel's National Security Minister Itamar Ben-Gvir to totally stop humanitarian aid into Gaza. He's alleging Hamas is taking the supplies. What are the immediate effects of that, humanitarian-wise, and how's it playing out regionally?
Well, the human cost is immediate, and it's bad. Reports mention at least 21 Palestinians killed just in June, and conditions are getting worse. So these calls to stop aid, whatever the reason given, they just make a terrible humanitarian situation even more dire. And then if you zoom out, yeah, these local things directly hit the bigger diplomatic picture. Egypt, Qatar, the U.S., they're trying to negotiate, sure. But the fact there's no lasting ceasefire just shows how incredibly complex and, frankly, fragile everything is there.
Right. That fragility, it seems like it goes beyond just Israel-Gaza now. It's pulling Iran in directly. The sources talk about President Trump defending U.S. strikes on Iran's nuclear sites. He cited intelligence, saying it set back their program significantly, maybe temporarily.
Yeah.
Those strikes reportedly killed over 600 Iranians. Is this like a new phase, more direct U.S.-Iran conflict?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, this wasn't some quiet, covert thing. It was a major escalation. And Iran's response was direct, too. Remember that missile and drone attack on Israel? June 13th. Over 150 ballistic missiles, more than 100 drones, about 22 people injured, reportedly. That was a very clear message, direct military payback. And then they went further. They targeted the U.S. Al Udeid Air Base in Qatar, June 23rd. They called it Operation Glad Tidings of Victory. Now, most of those missiles were stopped. No casualties reported, thankfully. But still, it shows a dangerous new level of direct confrontation between these powers.
Okay, so with that level of direct military clash happening, where does something like the Gaza Freedom Flotilla fit in? The civilian effort in June 2025. Sources say it was trying to bring in essential aid, baby formula, medical stuff, but Israeli forces intercepted it on June 9th, and activist Greta Thunberg was apparently among those detained. What does that incident tell us about, well, the bigger picture of aid delivery in these zones?
It really highlights the extreme difficulties and the risks. Humanitarian efforts get caught right in the middle of these huge geopolitical fights. It's not just about logistics, like getting a truck through. It shows how delivering basic aid becomes this highly politicized, really dangerous thing to do in a conflict. The interception, it just underlines the tight control over access and the real dangers for anyone trying to cross those lines, whatever their motives are.
Okay, shifting gears a bit. Beyond the Middle East flashpoints, the sources point to another big change in global dynamics. This time, at the NATO summit.
Yeah.
In The Hague, right? June 24th and 25th. It was under the new Secretary General, Mark Rutte. And they made some pretty strong commitments, increasing defense spending to 5% of GDP by 2035, notably. What's the main message there behind that big spending number?
Well, it's not just throwing money around. It's a strategic statement. NATO is saying, loud and clear, collective defense is back as the top priority. They're essentially redrawing that kind of Cold War line against Russia, but with a very specific, very expensive commitment to military power. The final statement doubled down on Article 5, attack one, attack all, called it ironclad, and they pledged ongoing support for Ukraine. They explicitly named Russia as the threat. So yeah, it's a definite strategic turn towards being more ready, more deterrent.
Interesting, too, that former President Trump was there, and the sources say Dutch leaders praised him for his stance on Iran. Does that hint at maybe a shift in the usual U.S.-Europe alliance feel, especially given there's often been some European nervousness about U.S. commitment to NATO long-term?
It definitely points to a fascinating sort of complex dynamic in these alliances. Well, Sure, some allies might still be a bit wary about U.S. consistency, Trump being there, getting that specific praise. It underlines maybe a more transactional approach some leaders are taking now, even inside these old alliances. The summit also stressed boosting defense industrial cooperation, basically, building and buying military gear together. That points to a wider rethink of defense postures everywhere, and you see the UK confirming plans to buy those U.S. nuclear-capable planes, citing Russia threats. That's another clear piece of this puzzle.
Right. Okay, let's move from military strategy to the environment. June saw temperatures really spiking across North America and Europe earlier than usual, kind of like 2023 again. What's the deeper meaning behind this seasonal shift?
This is, yeah, it's a critical point and pretty sobering. Scientists are basically saying that the traditional hottest 5 weeks of summer, they're starting earlier now, and that means more danger for longer, especially for vulnerable people. These extreme heat waves are just happening more often. They're stronger, they last longer. This isn't some far-off threat anymore. It's right now. It's urgent. Big worries about health, wildfires, farming, even glaciers melting faster, what we used to think of as maybe a summer blip. Well, now it's just June. That's the new reality, it seems.
And finally, let's look at the United Nations, celebrating its 80th anniversary. But the sources suggest it's at a real crossroads. What makes this such a key moment for an organization that was set up, to keep peace and foster cooperation?
Well, its actual influence is being seriously questioned. There are ongoing money problems internally, plus the world is just becoming more polarized, more divided. Sure, they have initiatives like the Pact for the Future trying to modernize things, but critics point straight to the Security Council being stuck, paralyzed, really, on huge crises like Gaza and Ukraine. The key thing here, I think, is that the UN, as it is now, is really struggling to mediate effectively or enforce solutions when the world is so fractured. And that raises a huge question, doesn't it, about how effective global governance can be right when we seem to need it most.
So wrapping this all up, what does this all mean for you, listening?
Well, if you step back and look at the big picture, these multiple crises hitting all at once, the military stuff, the shifting alliances, the accelerating climate issues, the institutions struggling, it really challenges our old ways of thinking, doesn't it? About how the world is run, about global governance, even about what individuals can do. It makes you wonder, what kinds of solutions, what adaptations are we going to need in a world where normal hot weather starts way earlier and where our big international bodies seem stuck on the really critical stuff? It's a profound shift we might need to prepare for.
Exactly. And it's that tangled web of global challenges which you've laid out so clearly from the sources that makes understanding how they all connect so crucial. Thank you for sharing your sources with us. We really appreciate you joining us for this exploration. We honestly believe these deep dives are vital. They help strip away some of the noise and show how events that seem separate, a flotilla, a heat wave, the summit declaration, are actually all threads in this complex, evolving global story. We hope to keep exploring the world's most fascinating and sometimes urgent topics right here with you.